Good evening, everyone. This is Mr. Peters. I'm doing the video for tomorrow's exam. Now, like in the past, I would go over every single question, but we really kind of have three main topics. So instead of me going through every single question, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over these three main topics. And again, if you have any questions or concerns, just email myself or Mr. Palacios, okay? All right. So that first question we talked about was question 142. We're talking about the focus, the directrix, and the parabola, okay? So let's take a look at question B, and I'll try to explain it so you can see what's going on, okay? So the question says, the graph below shows a parabola and its directrix. So you want to know what is the coordinate of its focus. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so we can kind of see and get an idea of what am I looking at. So let me just take this graph. Make it a little bit bigger so we can see what's going on. Okay. Okay, so that's our graph. So let's just go back to the instructions for a second. It says a parabola and it says a directrix. So we have to know a couple of things. The parabola is going to be at this part, the minimum part, right there. Okay, kind of at the bottom. Okay. Second part. It says it's directrix. Directrix is this line right here. Okay. So because that's our directrix and our parabola, we want to look for the focus. So the focus is going to be an equal distance from here to here, but going up. What do I mean by that? So again, we have our focus. In between our focus is our parabola. And then at the bottom is our directrix. Okay? So in the middle of all this is our parabola, and underneath is our directrix, and above is our focus. So the best way to kind of do this is to understand the idea of being equal distance, being the same distance. So let's count for a second. If I'm going here to that parabola, I count up 1, 2, 3, 4. So I recognize that I went up 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So we know from our directrix to our parabola, we went up 4 times, and our parabola is going to be -3, 0. Okay? Again, I went up 4 times. Okay? Our directrix, so this is our parabola, right? Our directrix is the line underneath. It's -1, -2, -3. So our directrix is going to be y equals -4. Now y equals -4 because it's right here. It's on the y-axis, and that is -4. So it's simple. I went up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go for 1, 2, 3, 4. So what I just discovered, I discovered our focus. And our focus in this case is going to be -3, 1, 2, 3. So our focus is going to be -3, 4. And again, I came up with that because it's the same distance. Does that make sense, guys? It's the same distance. Okay? So that is our parabola. That is our focus. That is our directrix. Looking at the same distance between the two. Okay. Now look at the second one. And again, I'll make it a little bit bigger so we can kind of see it. Okay. So same thing, same idea. And again, just remember this. A parabola is at this part, the lowest part right there. Okay. So our parabola is, let me see, 1, 2, 1, 2. So our parabola is going to be 2, 2. Okay. Our directrix, or our equation, and the question might say, what is the equation of the directrix? We're going to actually look at where that line is. And that line is on the y-axis, and it's y equals 1. Okay. We have our parabola, which is 2, 2. We have our directrix, which is y equals 1. So it's, again, same idea. How far is the direction from the parabola? It is 1, 2. 2 spaces up. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go 2 more spaces up. And 2 more spaces is going to give us our focus. Okay. And our focus in this case is going to be 2, 4. Okay. That is how you find your parabola. That's how you find your focus. And guys, it's kind of the same idea. If I give you the focus and I give you the line, we know it's going to meet halfway. And that's how you find the focus between the two. Okay? Okay. We'll come back to this a little bit more because we have some more to go over. Okay. All right. So now we're going to go a little bit opposite now. Okay? So, in this case, and again, I'll make it a little bit bigger so we can see it. Okay. It's working a little backwards, so let's just go do that like that. Okay. So in this case, we have our parabola. In this case, we have our focus. Okay. And again, that's what the question said. Each of these two graphs below show a parabola and its focus. What is the equation of the direct axis? So again, we're going to kind of work backwards. So our parabola is right here. So our parabola is going to be, let's do the counting, -1, -2, -3. And then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our parabola is going to be -3, +5. Okay. And let me just confirm that because I have the dot there. So -1, -2, -3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, -5. So that is our parabola. Okay. Our focus. So we have the focus this time. What is our focus? Our focus is -1, -2, -3, 1, 2, 3. So our focus is going to be -3, 3. Okay. Now remember, the focus and direct axis is equal distance from the parabola. It's equal distance. So what does that mean? That means if my focus is here and I went up 2 times. Okay. So from the parabola, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go 2 times again. And this is my direct axis. But my direct axis is going to be an equation. Just give me this line. Okay. And that line, again, it's on the y-axis because that's the axis it crosses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So my equation is going to be y equals 7. Okay. That is the equation of the direct axis. So again, the direct axis is equal distance to the parabola, which is equal distance to the focus. Okay. So it's kind of all on one line. Okay. Now the one thing you saw differently, the direct axis can be above or it could be below, but it all depends on where the focus is and all depends on the parabola. So in this case, the direct axis was above. Okay. Okay. Any more questions on this? The best thing to do is to go to Delta Math. Delta Math has a whole segment on that, and based on that, you should be able to know how to do it. Okay. Question 145. The graph of a line y equals x is shown at right. On the same set of axes, sketch 2 functions that are inverses. And how are they related to the line y equals x? Mr. Palacios discussed this in class. We had this conversation in class. When we're talking about inverses, we realize that if one point is 2, 5, the inverse of this would be 5, 2. Okay. So let me just plot that to show you what that looks like. So if I do 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if I did 2, 5, and then I plot 5, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, you just discovered something. You discovered that they inverse each other. And when you mean inverse, they reflect over this line. Okay. So the y equals x line is your inverse. I'll say it again. The y equals x line. So this line right here, y equals x, is your inverse. And you know that this is the same equal distance from this. So this is how you inverse things. Again, I'll do another example. Let's say I do Let's say I do 1, 3. The inverse would be 3, 1. And let's see if it reflects over that line. So 1, I go up 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go the opposite. 1, 2, 3, 1. And look, it goes right across that line. Okay? So when you're dealing with inverses, guys, just remember the points are opposite. The x and y, you flip it to y and x. Okay? So that's how we know that they're inverses, because you just graphed it over this line. So any inverse is the y equals x line, or the y equals x line is a diagonal line, straight across. Okay. The focus of a parabola is 3, 5, and the direct axis is y equals 1. What are the coordinates of the vertex? Okay. This is where it kind of gets a little tricky, because we don't have a graph here. So how could you handle this? Well, you can kind of go backwards on this one. You can say to yourself, you know what? I'm going to create an imaginary graph. I'm going to say to myself, you know what? Let me just create an imaginary graph. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's my parabola, right? This is my parabola. And my direct axis is 1. So my direct axis is 1. Excuse me, I misspoke. This is my focus. Okay, so my focus is 3, 5. My direct axis is y equals 1, so it's here. I want to know what is the coordinate of the vertex. So you have to understand something. This is y. The only thing that's going to change is just the y. So the x is going to stay the same because, guys, if you think about it, you're just going down. If that makes sense, you're just going down. So the only thing that's going to change is this 5. Only thing that's going to change. Okay? Now this question is a little bit more direct. If you kind of figure it out, you figured out that you're really only going down how many times? 2. How do you figure that out? It's pretty simple, because between 5 and 1, because remember this is 1, the number has to be 3. Okay? But let's say you get confused, because it happens. You might say to yourself, man, I don't know that 3 is in between 5 and 1. What is a way to do that? We're going to take our 5. We're going to know, we know that this is y equals 1. And we're going to do kind of something called the midpoint. So we took our 5, which was here, the focus. And again, we're just looking at y because we got y equals 1. We got our y equals 1. We added it up. 5 plus 1 is 6. Then in order to find the midpoint, and you guys learned this in geometry, you divide by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So now you know that we didn't change the x, but we changed the y, and we realized that our vertex is 3, 3. Okay? That's how we figured out the vertex. Okay? Pretty straightforward. Focal length, we went up 2, so the focal length is going to be 2. Okay? Again, focus, direct axis, vertex. What's in the middle is the parabola. So just make sure you remember the parabola is in the middle. Parabola is in the middle of the 2. Okay? If you got to work backwards, that's how you answer that question. Okay, let's move on to factoring. Factoring has been a little tricky for some of you guys. I think you guys struggle a little bit with factoring. So I'm going to go through this slowly. I'm going to explain this. You might want to put this down in your index cards for tomorrow. I'm going to give you the actual way to do it. So I want you to look at it, okay? So now I got a factor. I have to figure out what factors I'm going to use. So I'm going to write this question, but I'm going to show you using variables, okay? So the way this question looks kind of like this. Okay. If you can remember back to algebra a long time ago, we recognize that this is the A coefficient, this is the B coefficient, and this is C. Okay. So I'm going to explain this. Same way, don't get confused by the terms. It's the same thing we have been doing. Okay. So step 1. I'm going to multiply A times C. Okay, so A in this case is 2. C in this case is -9. 2 times -9 is -18. Okay, so that's my first step. Step 2, I'm going to take b. So in this case, b is going to be 3. Okay? So here's what I have to tell myself. I have to find two numbers. I'm going to erase this. You can always rewind back if you didn't get that. Okay. I'm going to find two numbers that multiply to give me negative 18, but those same two numbers have to add to give me 3. Okay, so that's the plan. Multiply to give me negative 18, add to give me 3. So this is where it gets tricky, because you say to yourself, man, what numbers? Should I look at the multiplication, look at the addition? Always look at the multiplication. Okay, so I'm going to think of all the numbers that multiply to give me 18. So 18, what multiplies to give me 18? Well, 1 and 18 do. 2 times 9 does. 3 and 6 do. 4 doesn't give me, 5 doesn't give me. So those are my numbers. So now I'm going to start pairing them. So the easiest way to do this that I do 1 plus 18. And then I do 18 minus 1. This gives me 19. This gives me 17. So I know those are not going to be my numbers, because my number is 3. Okay, so that's not going to work. So then I'll do my next two numbers, 2 and 9. Okay, 2 plus 9, 11. 9 minus 2, 7. Why do I do this? Because I know that my numbers can either be positive, they can either be negative. So I know that they're going to give me either one of these numbers. So that's not going to work. Okay. My next numbers are 3 and 6. So I have 3, I have 6. Let's see. 6 plus 3 is 9. 6 minus 3 is 3. Bingo. So I now know that that gives me 3. Okay? Now, if I had did negative 3 plus 6, it would have gave me negative 3, which would have worked too, but we just wanted to see what those numbers are. So we now know our numbers are 6 and 3. So I now have my numbers. I now know that I can work with these numbers. And again, we'll do a couple more of these examples. So don't feel discouraged if you feel like, oh my God, I don't know what he's doing. He's going too fast. He needs to slow down. So I have my 2x squared. I'm going to replace my 3x with my two numbers. So my two numbers are going to be plus 6x. And my second number is going to be minus 3x. And then I have my minus 9. Some people get confused. Well, is the 6 positive? Is the 6 negative? Is the 3 negative positive? Just do the math. Do 6 minus 3. If 6 minus 3 gives you positive 3, you're good. If you do negative 6 and a positive 3, do the math. It's going to give you negative 3. That's not going to work. From here, we do our groupings. Okay? So I'm going to look for the greatest common factor. Okay? Some of you guys have struggled with this. A quick way to do it, if you're still struggling with this, put the numbers out and just see what numbers go into them. So I know this is 1 times 2, and then I have 2 x's. I know for 6 is 2 times 3, which is 6, and then I have 1 x. And then just circle kind of what they have in common. They all have a 1, but that's not there. They have a 2 in common. They don't have a 3 because the top one doesn't have a 3. And they have an x in common. So now I discovered that my greatest common factor is going to be 2x. Okay, so again, if you're not doing too well on how to do that, this is the quickest way to do that. Okay? And again, if I'm going too fast or going too slow, guys, rewind the video. It's perfectly fine. Okay. So I have 2x, and I'm going to break it down. Now, some people don't know how to do this. You just divide. You divide that by 2x, and you divide that by 2x. And that's how you know what numbers come out. So the 2's cancel out. X squared divided by x is just simply going to be x. 6 divided by 2 is positive 3. And x divided by x, that cancels out. Okay? So I know my first one is going to be 2x, x plus 3. Same thing. Greatest common factor. Well, that doesn't have an x, so there's no x going to be there. And I know this goes into 3, so as Mr. Plaster said in class, this is going to simply be negative 3. Okay? And again, I'm going to divide by negative 3. Okay? The negative 3 cancels out. I'm just left with x. Negative and a negative is going to be a positive, and then it's going to be 3. So look what you've noticed. You've noticed that you have two factors. You already have your x plus 3. And then I bring down the other two factors, which is 2x and minus 3. And I have my 2x and I have my minus 3. And that is your answer. Okay? We'll do maybe one more. If you're still struggling with this, guys, you got to study. Like, I can only help you out so much. You got to study. So we'll come back to this, the leading coefficient. We'll come back to the inverse. We've done the parabola already. We'll talk about the lead thing. I just want to make sure we understand how to factor by grouping. Okay? So, again, 3x squared minus 4x minus 4. So again, my first step, I'm going to multiply this times this. And that is going to give me negative 12. So I got to find two numbers that multiply to give me negative 12, but add to give me negative 4. Okay? So again, I'm going to look at the numbers. I'm going to look at my factors of 12. I'm going to do 1 and 12. That doesn't work because 1 plus 12 is 13. 12 minus 1 is 11. That doesn't work. My next numbers are 2 and 6. Let's see if 2 and 6 work. 2 plus 6 is 8. 2 minus 6, in this case, is negative 4. Boom, we got our numbers. So now we know our numbers are going to be 2 and 6. But again, how do we know which is positive, which is negative? Again, use your calculator for this one. 3x squared. Because I know that this is minus 4, this has to be a negative 6x. And that has to be a positive 2x. And this is a minus 4. And again, positive 2 minus 6 gives me negative 4, and that's what I'm looking for. Okay? After I get my numbers, I'm going to group again. I'm going to group it again. Greatest common factor, again, if you pick it up real fast, you realize that 3 goes into both of them. And because they both have an x, that at least has one x, is going to be 3x. Okay? If you're struggling again, do this, get your numbers. So this is 1 and 3. This has 2 x's. This is 2 and 3. This has 1 x. And just cross them out. There's no 1, there's no 2. They have 1, 3 in common. They have an x in common. Okay? So again, if you're still struggling, that's what you can do. Okay? So again, my greatest common factor is 3x. I'm going to divide by 3x on both sides. Okay? 3, so I got my 3x here. 3's cancel out. X squared minus divided by x is x. 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. And the x's cancel out. Boom. So I got that. Same thing here. I'm going to do the math. I'm going to realize my greatest common factor is 2. Divide by 2. Divide by 2. 2's cancel out. I'm just left with x. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. Boom, I got my answers. So 3x plus 2, x minus 2. Okay? Okay. I will actually do B just to make sure we understand what's going on. Let's go back real quick. Everything else should be pretty straightforward. Leading coefficient. Leading coefficient of polynomial function is the number in front of the term with the largest exponent. So, if I write A, and I do apologize, as you can see, I'm writing with my nails, so it's going to come off a little disjointed, okay? So, my leading coefficient is the one with the highest exponent. If I look, the one with the highest exponent is going to be 3. So my leading coefficient is not the 3, it's the number in front of the 3. So the leading coefficient, because there's no number here, we have to remember there's an imaginary 1. So the lead coefficient for this one is going to be 1. Okay. Second one, we talked about it again, leading coefficient is the number with the largest exponent. The largest exponent in b is x to the fourth. The number that's in front is a 1, but it's a negative, so this is going to be negative 1. Okay. Last one here, again, leading coefficient is 15. Okay. Pretty straightforward. Inverse. Okay. Struggle with inverse. Inverse, we've done it for like the last 3 tests. I'm going to do it one more time. Quickly, f of x, we're going to make that y. And we're going to bring everything else down. Okay. Second thing, important, change the y and change the x and flip them. So now I'm going to make this x, and now I'm going to make this y. And then I'm going to bring down the rest of my equation. Okay. That's important when realizing you're doing the inverse. Now you're going to solve for y. So we're going to get rid of a couple of things first. So now we're going to solve for y. So now I want to solve for this. I want to get rid of this 12. Because it's a positive, I'm going to make it negative 12. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other side. Okay? So now this is x minus 12 equals negative 2 over 3y. Okay, and I'll write it on another page so we can see it. So x minus 12 equals, make sure I get the right question right, negative 2 over 3y. Okay? Make sure I got that right. Okay. Next step. We got to get rid of negative 2 over 3. But here's where you got to be careful. This is already a division question, so we do not divide this question. We actually have to multiply. Okay? Easy step to remember. You got to multiply by the opposite. So you have to flip it. Okay? You got to flip it. You can put the negative on the 3. You can put the negative on the 2. It doesn't matter, but you got to flip it. Why? Because they now cancel out. Okay? They now cancel out. But whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other side. So I got to multiply this whole side by negative 3 over 2. Okay? So now on this side, you have your y equals. Okay? Negative 3 over 2 times x. Remember, you're distributing 2, guys, because it's going to each one. Negative 3 over 2 divided by x is negative 3 over 2x. If you have a calculator, you can simply type it in your calculator. If you don't have a calculator, turn negative 12 into a fraction. Anything over fractions over 1, and you multiply straight across. So negative 3 times negative 12 is 36. 2 times 1 is 2. 36 divided by 2, this is going to be 18. So you've now created your inverse operation. Okay? And just remember, inverse simply means, so you want to check this, type both of these equations in the calculator. Inverse means if I have an x and y, my inverse is going to be y and x. Okay, you flip it. So again, that's your inverse operation. That's how you do it. We've been doing it for a while. Look back at the notes. Remember, the key is switching the x and y and then simply solve it. Okay. Okay, I think we're almost there. Let's go back to make sure I think I missed one question. Let's see if that was the question we did. We did this, the grouping one. We've done the parabola one. I think we have one more topic, and I think we are good to go for the exam. Again, we talked about the degree and leading coefficient. So again, the degree is going to be the exponent, right? The leading coefficient is going to be the 1, so leading is going to be, coefficient is going to be 2. Why is it going to be 2 for the first one? Because that's the highest exponent, okay? For this one, it has to be negative 6 because that is the highest exponent, okay? I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, I think we're going to do this last one. I think we are done. So I'm going to go back through. Okay, again, we talked about this. The parabola is 2, 6. So 2, 6 is here. The direct axis is 8, right? So let's say it's y equals 8, which is going to be up here. We just talk about the distance between the two. So from 8 to 6 is 2. So it's going to go down 4. So the focus is going to be here. And the focus is going to be 2, 4. Okay? If you're struggling, delta math, delta math, delta math. Practice, practice, practice. Okay. Last question. X squared x minus 4 negative 18. Okay. So first thing you have to identify, guys, is the fact that x squared minus 4 has repeated itself 3 times. So you know that that is going to be one of your factors. Okay. Second, we're going to take this, we're going to take this, and we're going to take this, and we're going to put it into 1. Plus 3x minus 18. Okay. So we can break down the first one. Why can we break down the first one? Because it is a perfect square. The square root of x squared is x. Square root of negative 4, we have a positive 2. And we have a negative 2. Okay? We got that squared away. Now, I'm going to do this on a separate page, and I'm going to bring it back to the question. So this was x squared plus 3x minus 18. Same understanding. Because there's a 1 here, a times c. So this can be negative 18. Multiply to give me negative 18. Add to give me 3. Again, go through the numbers. My first number is always going to be 1 and 18. I add this, I get 19. I subtract this, I get 17. Not going to work. Next, 2 and 9. And again, once you get comfortable with this, you'll start seeing these numbers don't work. 2 and 9, that's going to be 11. If I subtract it, it's going to be 7. Those are not going to be my numbers. 18, let me see, 18. 3 and 6, let's try 3 and 6. If I add 3 and 6, it's going to be 9. If I subtract 3 and 6, it's going to be 3. Ding, ding, ding. So I have my numbers 3 and 6, okay? Now, so I'm going to bring this down, my x squared. I have a 3. I have a 6. And then I got my negative 18. Now you have to determine what goes where. So I'm going to do the math. And again, I can try this first. I can put this positive and make this negative. Negative 6 plus 3 is going to give me a negative 3. So that's a positive 3. So that's not going to work. So I got to flip the signs. So this is going to be positive. That is going to be negative. Okay? Based on this, I'm going to group them again. Group. Group. And then I'm going to greatest common factor. So I know that there's a 1 here, so the numbers don't work. I know they both have an x, so I know this is an x. I'm going to divide by x. I'm left with x. Again, divide by x. I'm left with minus 3. Okay? Same thing on this side. This doesn't have an x, so it can't be x. 6 does go into 18, so 6 is going to be my greatest common factor. Okay? Divide by 6. That cancels out. I'm left with x. Negative 18 divided by 6 will be negative 3. So again, on this side, I have x minus 3. And then I have x plus 6. So now I'm going to add that to my answer. So x minus 3. X plus 6. So that is my answer. Okay. Guys, this is your review in a nutshell. Please ask questions. If you need any help, email me. Okay. Your best bet is to watch the video, but if you have any questions, email me, okay? Guys, have a good night. Sorry for the late video. I had a long day. Study, study, study.